So thank you all for joining us for this panel on sustainability and accelerators. Just as we're getting going here, I know this is maybe going to be a tough ask given the dynamics in the room. How many entrepreneurs are in the room right now? Active entrepreneurs, a couple. All right, and how many investors? Okay, and everybody else is something else, I guess. Anybody else that started a company that's not an active entrepreneur? Yeah, okay, great, perfect. All right, so we're just going to launch right into this. I'm Timothy Boulet. I am the Managing Director for Biological Solutions, Food and Agriculture at the Sustainability Accelerator. We're a relatively new thing here at Stanford, and what we're doing is putting catalytic finance and energy into Stanford research to push it out into the world to have impact. So it's a really exciting space. I encourage you all to come over and see our new building on campus. And there's 3 managing directors and an executive director that are floating around here someplace. So certainly steal anyone's attention. I'm super jazzed about this panel today. Accelerators played an important role in my life. I had previously been a medical doctor and was working in finance at the World Bank, and then decided to start a company. And I did that by joining Alex at IndieBio. And so I went from a room where I was sitting in a big chair like this to a room where I was an entrepreneur, like a kid's table, working and sitting in a plastic seat and trying to figure it all out. And it really played a critical role in my development as a person and a professional. So today we have Matthew Claxton, Jill Foose, and Alex Kapilian. I'll let them introduce themselves.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here. So I'm Matt Claxton. I'm one of the partners at Plug and Play. I'm also our global head of sustainability. I've been in sustainability for the last 13 years now, former operator myself, and now on the VC side, investing in incredible companies and also working with different corporations and startups to help sustainable solutions grow around the world. Plug and Play is a global innovation platform that's been growing over the last 20 years and now expands across 68 offices around the world. We work with over 550 corporations, several thousand startups all around the world through our accelerator programs, and we do about 200 investments per year. On the sustainability side, we have 13 offices around the world that cover 6 major industry pillars of sustainability. We've done 55 investments in the space and work with about 113 different corporations to help matchmake in between startups and corporates and really drive as much impact into the space as possible through our strategic connections and through our curriculum in our accelerator program. But thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks. Jill?
Hi, everyone. I'm Jill Foose. I'm the Managing Director of Activate Berkeley. I'm a scientist by training. I have a PhD in molecular and cell biology from UC Berkeley. I worked as an academic research scientist for many years at Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, so I'm really coming from that perspective. But I spun a company out of Berkeley Lab in the industrial biotech space, so I had my own startup journey. I was a fellow in the Activate program at Cyclotron Road. Since 2022, I've been the managing director at Activate Berkeley. And so in that role, I'm the primary mentor to all the fellows in the Berkeley program of Activate. And it's just a pleasure being in that role and really amplifying the learnings that I had as a fellow, as an entrepreneur, and sharing that knowledge with the fellows in our program. So Activate is a nonprofit that runs a fellowship program for scientist entrepreneurs. This is our 10th year, so we've been around since 2015. We're celebrating our 10-year anniversary this year. Since then, we've supported about 250 fellows, and their companies, and those companies have gone on to raise over $4 billion in follow-on funding. We're a national organization. We have 5 communities across the US, Berkeley, Boston, New York, Houston, and Activate Anywhere. Each year we take anywhere from 8 to 10 teams in the program. And so it's a 2-year fellowship. So at any given time, each community has about 20 companies that we're working with. So anyway, happy to be here.
Hey everyone, I'm Alex Kapilian with associate in IndieBio, one of the partners there. We're a $300 million early stage venture fund focused broadly on human health and planetary health. We like to be the first check into companies. The majority are probably coming out of academia, oftentimes coming straight from a lab. We then follow on to seed, Series A, and provide hands-on support for our companies for the whole lifetime of their journey. I'm part of the investment team in San Francisco. Our office is in the Dog Patch. We also have a team in New York and New Jersey, though we invest globally into companies from all over.
Great. All right, so I think we'll, as you can see, we've got an awesome team here. We'll just do a bit of scene setting. So what is an accelerator? What does that mean to you from folks that are sitting on the other side?
Let's go first.
I can take it on. So really what an accelerator is we are there to accelerate the pace of growth for a startup. We are helping them achieve what would normally take maybe 9 months to a year to achieve in 1 to 2, maybe even 3 months. Whenever we bring in a new cohort of startups, and I think for sustainability, we've accelerated close to about 500 over the last 5 years now. We really try to evaluate what are they looking for, how's their fundraising going, what types of customers are they going after, where are they struggling, and almost kind of beat up the company a little bit to get it to a point where it's much more in a much better shape to work with VCs, to work with corporates, help them meet with people they may not have thought of, and just help them form the strategy. And that's led to, I think now, close to about $1 billion in capital being deployed into those companies, and probably close to about 600 pilots and POCs that are currently ongoing today. So we really try to accelerate that pace. I know accelerate part is redundant, but ultimately we're just like try to push the needle and get stuff done as fast as possible.
Great. And Jill, Alex, does that sound right to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think these are really complementary groups here. We've had companies that have, I think, worked with both of y'all over the years, and for us, we've evolved in our approach. We think of it as like you're spending 6 months very hands-on with a team of 10 VCs. For anyone who can be local, we have a 10,000 square foot wet lab chemistry space you can build out of, but essentially we are investing, doing diligence on folks, and then getting them ready for seed and Series A. Oftentimes, founders who are scientists initially, maybe never started a company, and are kind of crossing that early chasm and how to go from an academic into like more of a kind of hybrid academic entrepreneur. And we just kind of put them through the weeds and put them through the ringer and get them ready and remain on as investors that are in the weeds from a technical perspective very much. So later stage folks often come to us as kind of DD and validation for what people are doing because they know we're in the weeds with founders. So that's kind of our role we play in the deep tech ecosystem.
That's great. And yeah, you run a slightly different program. So how is your take on this different? And also, how does that relate to where you are at Berkeley and a lot in this audience who are here at Stanford, and the academic component to that?
Yeah, so, we accelerate, although we're not an accelerator. And I think, we incubate, though we're not an incubator, through our partnership with the Cyclotron Road program at Berkeley Lab that provides space for the fellows in our program. And we're a fellowship program. And so the difference there is that we support people, not companies. So we support their companies because that's what the people are doing. So the fellowship model, that is a 2-year stipend that goes to the entrepreneur. And then we also provide $100,000 in R&D funds that in Berkeley they access through our partnership with Cyclotron Road and spend there at the lab. And so it is a bit of a different program because of the 2 years and how it's structured.
Great. Okay, so the scene is set. We understand what accelerators are. Now, how does sustainability fit into that? This is a sustainability conference. Folks are working on sustainability technologies. How do you think about your thesis for a company or a team that is developing something that's supposed to have a sustainability impact? Does that factor into ultimately how you think it's going to play out in terms of commercial success or scalability? What is the additionality of sustainability in this?
Yeah. Who wants to start?
Yeah, I can take off. So I think the entrepreneurs that come through our sustainability program actually have a little bit of a tougher road that they have to navigate because sustainability has a very checkered history with great times and bad times. It's used as a political, basically piñata quite often. And so you have to be really careful not to get caught up in a lot of the negative side of it while they are simultaneously trying to build a business, generate funding, get after customers, and just do their best to be as successful as they possibly can. So we really try to help them navigate that line on driving a environmentally or socially sustainable business that is having a positive impact in the world while also being able to be financially sustainable and driving real revenue for themselves so they're not just considered a money pit or charging a green premium like a lot of people like to label them. They don't have the advantage of, oh, they're doing AI, so they can raise $100 million off of no revenue, or not really do anything special. Not a lot of the companies are SaaS. We deal with actually also a lot of deep tech startups as well, but it's the industry that they have to navigate. It's much trickier, so we help them stay above board so that they can really make it to the other side and become great successes that we see in the market today.
And what does that mean for the bottom line and timelines associated with these companies? Yeah, I mean, Alex, you've been around in this space for long enough. I think IndieBio was the first to ever use the term planetary health at an accelerator. So you've seen a lot of companies come up in this space, in the alternative protein space and biomaterials. What's your take?
I mean, I think for sustainability, I'd say 99% of our companies, like outside of healthcare, have a strong impact there. I think it's inherent to the technology and what we're looking for. I think, if people haven't heard it, you have to know, like, you have to win on unit economics fundamentally. Like, you have to have a better business than the incumbent process, and you have to solve a real problem that is not just like, I'm going to give you green nylon and make you pay twice or 10 times more, or meat that is 10 times more. So I think that is really where founders need to learn how to navigate a sector, especially if they've come from academia as opposed to industry. Like, in agriculture, is the actual problem that people want to be more sustainable, or is it like temperature fluctuation causes massive crop loss? And if you solve for that, you have a huge sustainability impact, but you're actually solving a very tangible, meaningful problem. And you could apply that from lithium extraction to energy and fuels to everything between. So I think even at the peak time of the hype cycle, like, you have to solve a real problem. And sustainability will maybe be a nice add-on, but it should be inherent to the business, I think, for sure.
Yeah, and I'll just add that one of the benefits of our program and having that time is that the phenotype of most of the fellows in our program, they're scientists and they've had a breakthrough technology in the lab, and they're figuring out how to put that into the marketplace and where to go. And so oftentimes the first year of the fellowship, they're using that time to do the really deep work into industry and understanding sustainable solutions and how to deploy that tech. The really specific, because a lot of these solutions, there's a place where they will win, and they have to do that work to figure out where that is, and it could be a single line in a giant plant kind of thing is the place where it really their technology has economic benefit. And so we give them the space and the guidance to find that killer app for their tech.
Maybe if you don't mind. And I mean, just to kind of add to it, one of the things that Alex was saying is the strong business fundamentals. That is absolutely key. So when we work with a lot of scientists, they're not quite used to the business side or the fundraising side or going after and even speaking with customers. So we really force them into that discomfort zone and saying, if you want this to really succeed, you need to think about the business at almost the same time as the technical side. It is very difficult to scale the technology, but you also need to scale the business and drive something that will create revenue and create value. And as Alex mentioned, the sustainability should be a nice to have. We're all sustainability focused here. We would love for that to be at the forefront, but we also need to be realistic of what will it take to be successful in the long run.
Great. So Jill, you are not an equity investor, as I understand. You provide grant financing.
Right.
Matt, you run an accelerator program that does not take grant funding, and then you potentially invest after the accelerator for equity. And Alex, you take equity from the beginning. So what is that dynamic like? And do you think that there is a role for equity investors in the sustainability ecosystem, or should it all be the same model that sort of Jill is piloting here?
I think we need all the capital we can get. So I mean, I'll just say one of the benefits of the grant, of our model, which is it's non-dilutive, is that our fellows have the freedom to explore all avenues, and they can build the company that is right for them, that aligns with their North Star. We spend a lot of time with them helping them figure out what that is. We don't have a financial position in their companies, and so if they decide to pursue a nonprofit model, if that's the best, we'll support them in that. If they do the work and they figure out that there's not a future for this tech that's commercially viable, and they decide to shut their companies down, that's a win for us too, because we've just saved everyone a lot of time and money. And So that's a win for us, and we help them figure out like what their next step is. So it's like all degrees of freedom in that model. But oh boy, those companies, when they figure out the direction that they're going, they definitely need equity financing in many cases, and very important to have that part of the picture.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say, working with the VC, like the benefit and drawback is kind of the same. One, if you're with a VC, like you are kind of pushed to move on venture timelines and venture speed, which is something that if you're still crossing the early translation phase of a technology development into like low to mid TRL, it may not be a great fit because expectations get really misaligned. But I think if something is ready to go into venture, you should want to go there, and you just want to be careful that you have investors that don't mess up a cap table, who create a situation that can get money down the road, don't lead you down a path of like trying to maximize capital raised as opposed to actually maximize the viability of a company, which is something that happened in previous years for sure. And also what I think a great VC should do, along with guiding you strategically, is like be able to look downstream, because they have companies and intelligence from downstream, and provide that for a founder who's in an earlier stage. So take things that are happening with Series B, Series C, Series D companies, and actually help pre-seed companies build, knowing what's actually real in the market, but is probably not known to someone who's heads down in the business. So that is one of the best, I think, things you can get from an investor besides just capital.
Yeah, I think one thing I wanted to kind of maybe expand on was the investors or the players that can screw up a cap table. We see that with a lot of what we call like free investors that will charge a large amount of equity for just being part of an accelerator program. For the show Shark Tank, I mean, they did that for like the first year or two, where they would charge 5% equity to any company that just presented. Didn't even matter if they got money. And it's a great way to hurt themselves, the startup, in the long run. We only invest in a very small percentage of startups we see. So globally, we have 10,000 sustainability-focused startups in our ecosystem. We've accelerated about 600 or so, I forgot the exact number right now, but we've only invested in 55. So in order to actually get funding from us, it's pretty difficult, because we need to keep our threshold for why and where we're investing. But for being part of the accelerator program, that is, because of our corporate sponsors are the ones that are voting in these startups, and we run them through our curriculum. So we try to keep it mutually exclusive, so we're not jeopardizing one side for the other and lowering the quality of one side for the other. But really making it so if you go through this program, we're going to help you out the best we can. If we happen to invest, fantastic. If not, we're going to help you get investments from someone else.
Great. One thing that I hear from startup founders, and having myself been one as well, understand that there's sometimes a complex dynamic between the investors and the founders, and incentives are not always aligned. How do you work to ensure that incentives are aligned, particularly with your teams that are working on sustainability and trying to do something good for the planet? How do you make sure that you're on the same side of the page?
I mean, I guess that when I work with founders and they're considering investors, hard tech is hard. It has a longer timeline. We spend a lot of time talking about when is the right time to bring in VC investment. What is the right, really thinking about what's the right money at the right time. And so it's just, and it's finding that match of an investor. There are a lot of investors out there. And so finding the right one that is aligned with your goals. And then, there's the money piece of it. Like from the very beginning of the fellowship, I'm just like, how are you going to make money? If you want to go on the VC path, how are you going to make money? And then, really working on the fundamentals of, techno-economic analysis and really thinking about, the value chain, where you insert in that value chain, how you pull along that value chain, like all the fundamentals that VCs love. So we help our founders work on that.
I would say the two things with incentive, like one is timeline. So we have a decade plus fund, and like in deep tech, you need to have investors who probably have a 10-year time horizon at minimum for most things. The other is founder control and founder ownership and remaining as that role. Like, I think most VCs are looking to invest in people who remain with the company for the long term. We are as well, for sure. We spend a lot of time on kind of the human capital, AKA helping people grow into themselves and grow new capabilities and support that. So those are the two things probably to really think about when you're talking to an investor.
Great. So for us, I mean, this is kind of why we make it a little bit more separate, where for the Accelerator program, we are just purely focused on driving as much capital into the startups as we can, whether it's through helping with grant funding, getting connected to the Activates of the world, or getting connected to the right investors, as well as getting connected to the right corporates to help them ultimately grow. If we make an investment, fantastic. If not, it's fine. We don't invest, and they don't have to go through our program in order for us to invest. It helps because it's more on our radar, but it's not necessary. And for us on the investment side, we are more of like an evergreen fund. We do have industry funds that enable us to write bigger checks into the A and B rounds, but we look at this at a 5 to 7 year horizon. I mean, we're all scientists by trade. We know how long these things take to scale and grow. We know also how difficult it is to scale hardware solutions, but we also have seen how quickly the valuations can jump from one to another if you really have the right technology that proves out the value, that unit economics are great, and just has that magic formula of really creating something special. We're not going to get diluted as much. We'll see the valuations jump. We'll be able to get our returns that we need, and at the same time, we'll be able to support other startups. So we can kind of use all these pieces and levers that we have at our advantage and just drive everything forward simultaneously.
Great. Okay, so we've been on this panel about 20 minutes now. You've all had lunch. You're probably feeling a little tired. So we'll try to jazz it up and talk about things that are a little more scandalous. So start with you, Alex. What is the biggest mistake you've ever made as a sustainability investor?
Wow.
I did not give that
I didn't
question
have
in
warning for
advance.
this at all. Yeah. I mean, the biggest challenges are always things that advising founders and things that don't work. I mean, that's the biggest mistake is, do you give someone advice or go with a directive that doesn't end up working out for a company? And I think the biggest balances are when founders face a tension of they need more capital to get to the true de-risking. So there's a temptation to not focus on internally building, but just be entirely fundraising versus build the thing, spend a lot more of your capital, lower runway, knowing you have to raise more to actually get to the true demonstration of proof of that. And I think that is a tension that had to walk, and at times it's been unsuccessful, and that sucks. It's the worst thing when a founder you work with isn't able to get to the milestone they want and have to shut down. Times it works. I would say that's probably one of the hardest. I would say I've made investments that haven't worked, and that's part of the job, as opposed to when you kind of mess up in that more tangible way.
So it's a lesson I actually learned fairly early in my time at Plug and Play, was being a little bit too trusting that startups are just going to come, especially the really exciting ones that everyone wants to try to get into. They're going to come and say yeah, we're opening up the round now. We'd love for you to invest. Most of the times you will be pushed out. You're going to lose out. And there was 2 very painful examples. One of them was AMP Robotics that was just in our hand, and we saw it walk by because we're oh yeah, they'll email us. It's fine. So we learned to get much more aggressive, especially for those early deals that you really want to try to win. And we definitely did not make that mistake going forward. And one of the reasons why we're able to get so many deals, because we get so aggressive with making sure we're investing in the right companies, but also we're investing into rounds that we know are sound and not getting caught up in hype waves that we've seen in 2021 or AI right now.
Great. And Jill, I guess it's a bit different for you because you do grant funding, but you could still make mistakes. So tell us about one of yours.
I mean, one of my mistakes with my own company, or what I see founders make, or what area?
Yeah, I think a mistaken judgment that led to a bad outcome in the sustainability space.
It's a good question. I mean, and I guess the most common mistakes that I see with founders is that they're coming from academia, which is wonderful, but it has a certain mindset. And then in the commercial space, you need a different mindset. And Activate has collected these mindsets and written them down so that we work with our founders so that they're aware of the mindset. An example is it's more important to create value for customers than to understand the science, for instance, or it's, you have to learn how to make decisions with incomplete information. Scientists often want more data, and you can't always do that. You have to, move faster than that. And so I think with founders that just have they can't make that jump from the academic mindset to the entrepreneurial mindset. What it can lead to is sort of like paralysis in movement. There's too much to think about. They need too much data. And they get, they're not setting priorities correctly. Like what should I work on? And that's like a huge thing in startups is that, you're resource limited, you're time limited. You have to prioritize like ruthlessly. But you have so much to do, and people are telling you all sorts of different things. Oh, you should be doing this, or you should be doing this. And so, really training that muscle of like, what is the most important thing that I should be working on right now is just so critical for their progress.
I mean, it's not even just academics coming out and starting a company. We see it with just like a lot of very scientific people. I mean, one thing we train a lot of my team to do is differentiate the entrepreneurs with the inventors, where when it's really early, it's kind of hard to tell the difference. But when you look more at their attitude, how they're approaching it, the developer paralysis that you're mentioning, that's when you start to see like who are the people that are driving a business with technology versus ones that are just doing technology improvement after improvement after improvement and be like, oh, eventually money will come. Don't worry, they'll come. And we're just like, nope. You get a year, you get 2 a max, and then we'll move on. That's it. Great. Yeah.
I would add one thing that is a mistake. I can't take full credit for it, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately. I think a lot of companies, especially when capital's flowing a little bit more freely, raise outside of their actual exit zone. And like different sectors have essentially acquirers that are able to go within a different range of outcomes. Like in ag inputs, like 200 to 500 million is the vast majority of exits. In food manufacturing, there's a different range, et cetera. And a lot of time, it is very tempting to just raise more and more and start moving outside of that range. And a lot of companies get stuck in spaces where they actually don't really have a way to go because there isn't really an exit outcome that is acquisition, and the IPO hurdle becomes much, much harder for a sector. So that is a broad mistake here. We've had companies that kind of are in the space where they're doing the dance of how do you get viable when you're valued in a non-standard way. So that's a very broad, I think, mistake of this sector. And sustainability is so broad. Energy is not the same as ag or food or mining, but a lot of companies have to deal with.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so we'll do one more question, and then we'll turn to the audience. So if you've got questions out there, prime them up. So this last question is to each of you. And you have a set amount of money, and you can only invest in one company. 3 companies come before you. One company, and you've also got like a genie with you who tells you which one is going to make the most money, and you have to choose between the 3. The first company will have a massive commercial impact, make a ton of money, have 0 sustainability impact. Company B will do okay sustainably, okay commercial impact, and company C will have massive sustainability impact but make no money. Which do you invest in?
Spicy.
I'll take B, because I think the third one, that'll have a huge sustainability impact but make no money, is going to be dead. So there's no company and no impact. The first one, if I want to make the most money, I wouldn't be spending my time in sustainability entirely. So B is the one that kind of walks the balance of that.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
But I wish you could have D, which is huge impact, sustainably, and makes a ton of money.
Right.
They do exist.
Is a thing.
They are out there.
That's what we're all going.
That is the thing, yeah.
You need another genie
The
for that.
winner. Yeah.
Great. Okay, questions. Who's got a question? Any entrepreneurs in the audience have a question first? We'll start with them. So founders are always have the hardest run. I mean, investors have it hard too, of course, you guys on the panel. But it's, yeah, please.
See one.
I teach in Cal State University. You said you have a set of guidelines for your students to differentiate between love of technology and see whether it works in the market or not and things like that. I was wondering if this is something that's available to the public so we can share it with our students and with the entrepreneurs that we mentor.
Are you referring to the mindsets that I was talking about?
The mindset and yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think the mindsets themselves are not on our website. We do have quite a few tools on our website, a lot around techno-economics, and you can download templates to do, first, models of profitability and that sort of thing. I'm happy to share the mindsets with you. Yeah, absolutely. But please, yeah, check out our website. And I think there's more to come in that space, putting more materials out there for everyone to see.
Great. I think there's a question over here. Yep. The microphone will come to you. You got it. Great.
I have a follow-up question to the one you asked, Tim, that in this moment of unsustainability and crisis, investors often play a key role in what entrepreneurs do because money matters. Is this a moment to reimagine where we encourage entrepreneurs to focus? Often we hear it's capital markets, customer. Is there a role here for investors to really actually push for sustainability and climate change as being as important as the other two factors? And if so, what are your thoughts? And is there anything you're doing in terms of really shifting models on, especially for you, Jill, in academic place? I'm a Cal alum, and I know you guys do amazing things around sustainability. Are you doing something to shift how entrepreneurs think, what they prioritize to bring sustainability front and center in addition to customers and making money?
Yeah, I would love to see more investors in the sustainability space for sure. I mean, just to acknowledge, like, we're in a weird time right now in terms of funding. You know, like, I think in the past where we've seen, you know, investors like, you know, after Clean Tech 1.0 just fell out, the bottom fell out of it. I started my company in 2012, and it was just like there was no clean tech investing at that time. But at that time, there was, you know, quite a bit of grant funding, and there were corporate partners that were willing to do partnerships and stuff like that. And so there was, you know, if you couldn't get VC funding, you could go to other paths. We're at this weird time where like everybody's pressed the giant pause button. You know, corporates are just, you know, they're waiting to see what happens. With tariffs and you know, other things. And then, you know, I think VCs are doing more diligence, and that's not a bad thing. You know, it's really, it puts a stressor on the founder to really focus on fundamentals and, you know, build great, strong companies. And I think we heard about that earlier today, you know, that like the companies that come out of these times are stronger and, you know, have better returns. And then, you know, the corporates right now I already said corporates, yeah, the grant funding is, you know, even during the first Trump administration, like the grant funding was there. And now it's, you know, we're seeing grants canceled and, you know, the government's just moving very, very slow. And so there's less of a, you know, there's just a reduction in all capital right now. And so I think we're all trying to figure out, yeah, how to move forward in this kind of space.
Can I add to that? So
absolutely.
I think one thing that I really encourage people to do is look out or zoom out a little bit more when it comes to sustainability investing. I also started my company about 2013. The investment landscape 10 plus years ago is way different than it is today. I think a lot of people look at what happened in like 2021, 2022, when there was a flood of capital coming into the sustainability space. That was a hype cycle. And we advise a lot of people, don't get caught in kind of what Alex was saying, don't get caught up in way too high valuations, don't take the highest valuation possible, like stay true to where you should be, like be realistic, because there's a downside to it where you can end up having to do bridge loans or down rounds or just ultimately shut down the company because you can't sustain that high benchmark and you're not actually growing. So people are doing a lot of comparison to like, oh, climate tech investments down so much. It's compared to 2021 and 2022 when there's way too much capital into the space and not enough startups to actually invest into. So you got a lot of capital just sitting on the sidelines. Now, yes, January, February, even a good part of March, frozen across the board. Everyone's waiting, let's see what happens. It has really started to pick back up. I mean, even for us, like January to mid-March, we did no deals. In the last 30 days, we've done 5 deals. And it's not so much like, oh, you know, we were just waiting to see what happens. It's everyone was, you know, holding on, figuring it out, and now we're seeing the thawing and a lot more activity really picking back up. And one thing we always advise with startups, because they're saying like, grant funding is going away, or this government funding is going away, do not be dependent on public funding. If you really want to be in this space, study sustainability history. The people that lose the most are the ones that are dependent on the public sector. Figure out how to get a fundamentally sustainable business that's not dependent on grant funding or all these other things, If you can figure out that, you will win. If you are depending on regulations and government funding to make your business successful, you will lose 99% of the time. And that's a blunt truth that a lot of people in the space need to hear. Grant funding is great. It's free money. You're not diluting yourselves. But take a little bit of dilution for a longer term success versus no dilution for a short term win, but a long term loss.
I want to pick up on something you said there about the market looking very different over the years. 15 years ago, there were really only a handful of accelerators. Now there's probably hundreds, I guess, globally. There's probably several dozen at least that are focused on sustainability. It's a competitive marketplace to try to find startups. And so you and Alex might be competing for deals.
We've co-invested.
Do you guys throw down, or do you sort of collaborate? What's the approach there? If something comes across your desk and you say, I want that one.
I mean, all VCs collaborate.
Yeah.
Bluntly speaking, we don't necessarily share our top 3 deals, but we'll share number 4, 5, and 6. And
Did you know that, Alex? Is that
it might be an unwritten rule because you can't get pushed out of rounds, but we will share 1, 2, and 3 when our money is wired and it's secure. We're good. We're on there. You can't really do anything to get us off the cap table. But for other accelerator programs, there's a lot out there. We're not really seeing an issue of getting startups into our program, maybe with the exception of geographical focus. But I mean, we are free for startups to join. It's entirely up to them if they want to. We don't charge equity. We don't charge any cash. So they have nothing to lose and everything to gain by doing so. But I think some of the accelerator programs need to reshape their thinking, and we need to move away from the free accelerator programs that have occurred over the last decade. I'm hoping more and more to kind of fade out because they are quite harmful to startups in the long run.
Well, and our fellows often do multiple programs, and I think that could be really beneficial. I mean, I think it's particularly good when they match a general type of program with an industry-specific program. So they get the general advice and support, and then they do a program that's in their sector that gives them advisors who have experience in that area, and they can really take a deeper dive there. What I caution against is collecting accelerator programs, and logos on the slide, because then it seems like maybe you're doing programs and not building your company.
Could I understand that, Matt? So you said that free accelerator programs are harmful. So I want to understand that as the managing director of a free accelerator program.
Yeah.
And Jill, I suppose, also is a free accelerator program. So what unpack that for us?
She's a little bit different because she's actually giving capital. The ones that we've seen do it for free are...
No, they don't give money. There's no capital allocation to the company.
Exactly. So they'll take 5 to 7. I've actually seen 10% equity of a company from the jump. Never give them any cash. They'll give them services for 3 to 6 months. When we look at the cap table, we're going to see that investor and be like, okay, well, how much money did you actually get from them? They're like, no, nothing. We just got some, advice and mentoring. And we're like, that's a big red flag. We specifically point out those types of investors or those types of programs, we will not invest in you, or it's substantially harder to invest in you because it goes to your ability to go ask for money. We need entrepreneurs that are not afraid to go ask for money, because ultimately, how do you think you're going to get customers? You need to be able to be like, here's a product, we want to charge you X amount, whatever it is. Would you like to buy this? That is really important. And even if it's something they charge $1,000 for, that's way better than any free pilot POC or free accelerator program that will do.
Okay.
3 paid pilots is way more beneficial than 100 free customers.
You're right. You're an exchange of services and capital.
Yeah.
Group. All right, great. To clarify for the record, we also provide grant funding.
Great. That's fine.
All right. Yep. We got time for probably 2 more questions. What do we got? Right there. Go for it.
Yeah, I'm just interested to hear what technology industry or sector is most exciting for you guys over the next 5 to 10 years, and the companies that you're most interested in and what they're building.
For us, it's, a lot of stuff around energy efficient chips. We're doing a good amount of investments in the nuclear space right now. I know there's a lot of people are hesitating around carbon capture. I'm still a big supporter of it, but as long as it's providing real value. And just everything with the grid. Grid resiliency is huge. And we actually work with a lot of players on heat resiliency. So how do you actually balance the grid So you can manage it for extreme weather events like we're seeing more and more in the Sun Belts in the Southwest.
I would say a broad class that we're looking at and have been doing for the last 5 years is what we're kind of calling low capex bio and regular manufacturing. So I think even when rounds are ballooning, we started looking at companies that are able to do scale out and distributed manufacturing and actually have very rapid both revenue to capex cycles, as well as being able to kind of build infrastructure to spec of demand, as opposed to building giant widget factories in commodity markets and then kind of needing to essentially sink $250 million into the ground before they actually get to real product and unit economics. That's kind of a class of technology approach we're doing a lot of. Also, we haven't mentioned AI even once, I don't think. So I'm going to say applied AI into physical sciences, where you have in silico and in the real world, in the loop connected to each other, creating novel data and novel applications, whether it's agriculture, biomanufacturing, catalyst design, et cetera.
And I'm going to not answer that by saying that we run an open application process. Our applications close at the end of October. And so, we're looking for, sector-changing innovation, things that I can't even predict, what's going to be down the line. And that's what's really exciting to me are the things that, we get an application, we're like, whoa, I've never heard of that. And we've had, examples of that, like in advanced geothermal, like Fervo and Zanskar, and, thermal energy storage, like Antora and ETS, decarbonized cement, like Sublime and Brimstone, those are like, they're industry-defining companies, that are working in totally new areas, and that's really exciting. So I can't even, I don't know what it's going to be in the next application cycle.
Great. One more question? Yep.
A team of us are working on a startup, and we're super excited about it. And we've done a series of interviews, and we've had like customer validation. But I think we're at this interesting point where we're confident in our models, but we need real good quality data to be able to validate those models. And I think for investors and funding, they want to be confident that we can obviously offer a return and that our models are working. So we're in this space where we're kind of looking for funding, but we need that data at first to validate our models in a sense. So I'm wondering if you have any advice to kind of balance those two.
I don't think you actually need that data in order to get investors, because when we are really looking at companies, the first thing we look at is the team. So we are investing purely off of you and your co-founder or co-founders, however many there are, and the rest of your team. Technology will change, business models will change, market will change, everything else will change. But when you're really, really early, it's purely on the team and us betting on you being able to execute your vision and drive it to something to be as big as you think it will be. And there's investors that do that. We do that all the time. We're like the first checks in a ton of companies that don't really have a product. They have a fancy pitch deck, but the vision that they have and the prototypes that they have, we can see the vision in the long term, and we know it'll be something successful. I think probably the closest example I have for sustainability was Heirloom. We were the second check back when it was Equiops. Their prototype was, it was the size of your hand, and they're like, this is gonna be $1 billion company. And it was much more like, we believe in the team and the vision, and we see how the technology could scale, but they still they had very little. And they're now a massive, just raised $150 million Series B. So yeah, team is the first thing.
I'm going to say apply to Activate. The sweet spot for us, we have a partnership with Cyclotron Road at Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, where you get free lab space and access to those amazing facilities and the scientists there. And so you can, we've had lots of teams that have taken their company as far as they can go out of their garage or their bedroom or whatever, but they need the data, to prove out the concept. And so that's where our program really, really shines.
Yeah, I would just say, find investors who get what you do. We've invested in a lot of companies that are ideas on paper, because it is people, of course, and we get this pain, we get this problem, and what they're doing. So without knowing specifically, that's probably it.
Well, that was perfect. My last question was going to be, what advice do you have for entrepreneurs? So you really nailed that. Thank you very much. And we will stop it there. Really, thank you for your time. It's awesome. Appreciate it. Come steal these guys. Sort of get as much knowledge out of them as you can while they're here. And I think we'll wrap it up. Thanks so much.
Thank you.